And the person you identified as Ms. Reed, firstly, do you see that person in the courtroom today?
I do.
Could you just identify as to where she's seated or an article of
Seated at the table right there, black.
Does that record reflect identification done by the witness?
Yes.
After the fire department arrived, when they sort of take over resuscitative efforts with regard to Mr. O'Keefe, what, if any, observations did you make of Ms. Reed and what she was doing or saying at that time?
Ms. Reed was visibly upset. She kept saying, this is all my fault. This is my fault. I did this. And she was very hysterical.
And
she kept asking, he's dead. Is he dead? Is he dead?
And with that specific phraseology, that's something that she kept saying?
Yes.
And by your repetitive nature, I'm assuming it was said something that she said more than once, correct?
Several times, correct.
And when she's saying this, can you describe sort of how she's saying this? I mean, is it a whisper, is it a scream, or is it something in between?
She was yelling pretty good.
And with regard to her repetitive question as far as is he dead, what, if any, response did you provide to her in regard to that?
I just said they're doing the best that they can. I don't know.
Now, at some point, did you direct Ms. Reed, the defendant, to somewhere else away from Mr. O'Keefe?
Yeah, I tried to get her out of the elements. I put her in a car. I don't know if it was my cruiser or another cruiser there, but I had her sit in the back seat just to get out of the snow.
And did she stay in that cruiser for any?
She stayed in for a few minutes, and then she was like up and down, up and down.
So sort of in and out of whatever car you put her into?
That's correct.
When she would come out of the car, where would she go?
She was just walking around. From what I remember.
Now, with reference to Mr. O'Keefe, he's laying on his back on the ground. That location, where was that in relation to the roadway of Fairview Road?
I would say about 20 feet off the road.
So if it's 20 feet off of the road, is it fair to say that was on sort of the front lawn of 34 Fairview?
Yes, that's correct.
And at some point, the fire department takes Mr. O'Keefe's body off of the lawn. Is that correct?
That is
And
correct.
where were you in relation to Mr. O'Keefe when that happened?
I don't remember.
And if you don't remember, do you recall anything about sort of what the ground looked like when Mr. O'Keefe was lifted up?
I don't recall. I didn't.
Now, that area around where Mr. O'Keefe was, when you initially come up, you see him on the ground and you check for a pulse. If anything, did you note around Mr. O'Keefe's body as far as the condition of or disturbance of the snow around?
I noticed that there were footprints and track marks around the body itself. There was none coming from the residence or the area. It was just right around the body itself.
And so the position that Mr. O'Keefe is lying on his back on the lawn, correct?
Correct.
Is his head closer to the house or the street or something else?
I believe his head was closest to the house.
And the footprints that you're talking about, was that between sort of his feet in the street or above his head, or where was it in relation to
Basically all around him because people were walking around him.
And as far as beyond sort of the immediate area above his head, between his head and the house, what, if any, footprints or what, if any, disturbance in the snow did you observe up there?
I didn't see any.
Now, Officer Saraf, about how long was it that you were on scene?
I want to say about an hour and a half.
And at some point, the fire department transports Mr. O'Keefe from the scene, is that correct?
That is correct.
And do you know to what facility he was transported to?
I don't recall where they went.
And after Mr. O'Keefe was taken away by the fire department, as far as the three females, Miss Reed, Miss McCabe, and Miss Roberts, do you know where they went or what they did following that?
They, after talking to Sergeant Good, they left in their car. I don't know where they went. The car that was there, they left.
Now, at any point in the time that you were on scene before they left, did you have any conversation with any of the three of them?
I asked, you know, where were they, what happened, and what were they doing?
And who specifically did you talk to, if you recall?
Well, I asked Miss Reed, and she couldn't really tell me too much about what happened. Miss McCabe said that they were drinking in a couple bars downtown.
Let me just stop you before, as far as, so just sticking with Miss Reed.
Yep.
You asked her what happened, and you indicated she didn't really tell you much. What,
No,
Why not? What was her condition like at that point?
she was very upset.
So the same upset that you were describing earlier, did that sort of continue throughout the time that she was on scene while you were there?
I would say yes.
And at some point, did you speak to Miss McCabe without reference to what she told you?
I'm sorry.
At some point while you're on scene, did you speak to either Miss McCabe or Miss Roberts without reference to what they told you?
No. I mean,
Let me rephrase.
rephrase it, yeah.
At some point when you're on scene, did you have occasion to have a conversation with Miss McCabe?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point when you were on scene, did you have occasion to have a conversation with Miss Roberts?
I didn't speak with Miss Roberts, I don't believe.
Was there someone else from your department that was speaking with Miss Roberts on scene? You know.
I believe Sergeant Good or Officer Mulaney was.
One of the other two officers that were there.
Correct.
Now, following Sergeant Good's arrival, who, if anyone else from your department, arrived on scene at some point?
Detective Lank, Detective Sergeant Lank, and Lieutenant Gallagher.
And if you know, when was their arrival in relation to sort of when you arrived?
It was light out, so I want to say maybe 7 o'clock-ish.
And so for the period that you were on scene, you said it was about an hour, hour and a half. Is that correct?
That's about right.
The weather conditions that you described sort of when you first arrived, what, if any, change occurred in the weather conditions from the time that you arrived and the time that you left the scene?
The conditions lightened up a little bit. I mean, it was still snowing, but
Still snowing, still cold, correct?
yes, correct.
The wind, was that still persistent as well?
I would say yes.
Now, at some point after Miss Reed, the defendant, left the scene, did she come back?
She did.
And do you know how long a period it was that she was gone between when she left and when she came back?
Just a few minutes.
And do you know why she came back?
I don't know.
And when she returned to the scene, who, if anyone, did you speak with her further at that point?
No,
Who, if anyone, did you observe her to be speaking with?
I don't recall.
Now, the initial ambulance that showed up took and transported Mr. O'Keefe, is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, after that ambulance left and Ms. Reed came back to the scene, what, if any, other apparatus from the fire department arrived on scene at that point?
Another ambulance came.
And who, if anyone, went in that ambulance for transport?
They took Miss Reed to the hospital.
And do you know what hospital that she went to?
I don't recall.